Hello and welcome to Dungeon Dining with me, the Dragon, Stale Rice. Say, what's one of the most comforting, famous dishes in the entire world? Unanimously, you often see one of those dishes being ramen. I don't mean that instant stuff, I am talking about homemade Japanese ramen. For the last year, I've been experimenting with making my own homemade ramen, with some given advice I got from my very good friend, Brody the Wayward Dragon, who has had more than his fair share of making ramen for crowds. For about the last year, I've had my fun making tonkatsu and shoyu ramens. However, I wanted a challenge. You see, for further guidance, Brody sent me the Way of Ramen YouTube channel. They made authentic ramen using only items from the supermarket or from Walmart. But I was wondering, folks, could I limit myself even further and still make a tasty homemade ramen? Well, folks, today we're making a shoyu ramen using no instant packet or noodles, using only items from dollar stores. So, folks, let's go over the fundamentals of making ramen before we get to the challenge. Now, I'll let you folks know I am a ramen layman, so I'm going to give 5 simplified steps to making a bowl of ramen. 3 of the 5 steps are a given for making any noodle soup, but the last 2 steps are going to be what separates them from ramen. So, in no particular order, step 1, make a broth using vegetables and or bones. Step 2, boil your noodles. And step 3, plate and garnish your bowl. Goes without saying, right? Well, here are the last 2 steps. 4, make an aroma oil. And 5, make a tare. Now, what exactly are aroma oils and tares? Well, let me tell you. Aroma oil is either an oil or tallow that's infused with a particular flavor. And tare is what seasons a ramen broth. You see, you do not salt or season a broth when you're making it for ramen. When you plate your bowl of ramen, you add tare, aroma oil, your noodles, and then your broth. And from there, you garnish. So with those 5 fundamentals laid out, let's get to how I would make a shoyu ramen at home myself. And for warning, when I make a ramen, I'm typically eyeballing, so I apologize for the lack of measurements here. I would start by throwing leftover chicken and pork bones into a pot of water. My go-to would be the carcass of a rotisserie chicken and some pork shoulder bones, as well as a can of sardines. I would throw in a collection of diced carrots, celery, onions, mushrooms, and ginger. Now for my tare, I'm using Kikkoman soy sauce for my shoyu, adding some salt and or MSG, some kombu, or in a pinch I'll use some nori. Lastly, I'll use mushrooms and a little bit of mirin. For my aroma oil, I'm typically making mine out of garlic and the stems of green onions. I use a simple vegetable oil and I fry them until they're crispy and I strain them out. For my noodles, I'm taking a tip from the Way of Ramen and using angel hair pasta alongside baking soda. For my garnish, I braise pork in a combination of garlic, soy sauce, and mirin. After which, I slice them up and pan fry them. I plate it all up by adding spoonfuls of my tare, aroma oil, and adding my noodles. I sieve my broth through a mesh strainer and garnish. So then, folks, those are the fundamentals to how I would make a shoyu ramen at home. So with all that, let's get to the action.
Alrighty folks, it's voiceover stale. Now we're gonna get into our dollar store ramen. I went out to a local dollar store and a Dollar Tree to get as many substitutes for our ramen as possible, which came with some surprising results. First off, our ingredients for our tare and our aroma oil. I need mushrooms and soy sauce, as well as a substitute for kombu and for mirin. Salt is a common staple, so I'm not including it. To begin with, I'm substituting our mirin for a $1.25 bottle of pink Moscato. I don't see Dollar Tree having wine all that often, but they happen to have quite the selection when I visited, so score! Now for our kombu, I'm substituting it with nori, which I often do in a pinch, and thankfully a local family-run dollar store happened to have some. I got the last of their stock. And lastly, for our mushrooms, I found a jar of them at Dollar Tree, so half of that is going to be for our tare, and the other half is going to be for our broth. So far we're looking pretty good, but this is going to be the first of our many sacrifices. We're using a dollar store soy sauce, which is not the same as a Kikkoman or any other proper soy sauce, but it'll have to do. I tasted it myself and it tastes like a sad takeout packet of soy sauce. Now for our aroma oil, we're gonna make a garlic oil. So all we need is vegetable oil and garlic. That is easy. We're using a jar of garlic, some of which is gonna be for our broth, and the other portion is gonna be for our oil. And the remaining crispy garlic pieces are gonna be used as a garnish after we fish them out, of course. And now for the star of the show, our broth. For our broth, I'm using specifically low sodium chicken stock to ensure it isn't already seasoned. Unfortunately, we can't make chicken stock from absolute scratch, but we're infusing it with as much flavor as possible. For as much of our own meat flavor as possible, I'm adding a can of turkey, as well as a can of sardines. We already have our mushrooms and garlic, and now we have a can of sliced carrots. Good so far, we just need onion, celery, and ginger. Well, this is where we have further sacrifices. I searched high and low for Dollar Tree's onion and celery seasoning blend, but they didn't have any, so I settled for dried, crispy onions, and I have no substitute for our celery. And now for our ginger. I looked and researched as many ginger substitutes as possible, and any I looked for was not available. With white pepper, that was the closest substitutes at a cheap price that I could find, except Dollar Tree didn't have any. I settled for something with a different flavor profile, black peppercorns. Hopefully the flavor from these will give our broth a nice bite, but it won't be the same. And lastly, our garnishes and our noodles. I'm using a thin spaghetti for our noodles, the closest I can find to angel hair, and I'm using baking soda. For the garnish, I'm using our nori, as well as some canned corn, and the fried garlic from the oil earlier. And lastly, I'm using our only Dollar Tree item that's above $1.25. It's specifically $5, raw frozen shrimp. I'm going to deshell the shrimp and use the shells for our broth. I'm going to fillet the shrimp and batter it and then fry them into homemade tempura. Flour and water are also common staples like salt, so I'm not including them in the purchase. So, that seems to be everything. With all that finally out of the way, let's get to cooking.
Alrighty then, folks, it is time to begin our ramen journey. Now with our topping here done, we're going to start focusing on our aroma oil and our tare. And thankfully we have here the base of both. We have here a cup and a half of oil and a cup and a half here of soy sauce. And this here is our soy sauce. And when it comes to a ramen and a tare, you're going to want a good quality soy sauce. After all, it is the base of your seasoning. And this, unfortunately, is not the best quality soy sauce, as you can figure. For you see here, we're going to make up for that in regard to our other ingredients. So first goes in our cup and a half of shoyu. And nextly, our salt content. We have here a quarter cup of salt. Boom. And additionally, we want umami flavor. So we have right here our jar of mushrooms. Half of this is going to go in the broth, and the other half is going to be in our tare. And this jar claims to have 7 ounces worth of mushrooms, plus water. So give or take, we have just shy of half a cup for each. Let's get that heat going real quick. And add our shrooms. And now for an ingredient I'm very happy to have. We have here our dollar store nori. So I bought 2 of these, one for our garnish and the other for our tare. So lay that in. And let's get the heat going for our oil. Now a nice ingredient in tare would be some dried fish. Now I have some sardines right here. However, I'm not going to use them in the tare. I want as little extra moisture as possible. So these are going to go in our broth. Oh, and I almost forgot our mirin. Some pink mascato. Not a perfect substitute, but it'll do the job. And we have right here, folks, a half a cup of our pink mascato. Do not trip on me. Whoop. So then, folks, onto our aroma oil. we're making a very, very, very simple garlic aroma oil, which consists of, yet again, a cup and a half of vegetable oil, as seen here, and a third of a cup of minced onion. When I've made aroma oil in the past, I have used the stems of green onions, but we do not have those today, so we are using some of our onion crispies right here. This right here is a third of a cup. I'm only not throwing it in right away because A, I don't want to mix it in with the garlic, but secondly, I do not want these to blacken. So goes in our garlic. Remove as much water as you can because we do not want splattering. So folks, now it's just a matter of, well, time. We're going to wait a bit for these to stew and do their business. So in any case, let's do ourselves a jump cut. See you in a moment. Alright folks, we are back. And we have here our Tare and our aroma oil. And as you can probably see, our sauce is way less, has way less volume than it had before. So I gave this a taste test and I wanted to spit it out right away, which is actually perfect for a Tare. There is still a hint of that cheap soy sauce flavor, but you know what? It'll work for what we need it for. Although I want to point out something with this experiment for anyone else who wants to try it later. So when I was cooking this, I started getting this kind of brown cornstarch kind of textured sludge. And here's the remainder of it with the nori and the mushrooms. So, you can see, I'll see that well, right here. What is that? Well, I don't know what that is, but at least it's not in our tare, our finished tare. So, folks, there we go. That is the beginning of our ramen prep. So those two are finished and they will be used near the end. So next on to our broth and our noodles. Hey there again folks, it is now time for our broth and our noodles. Now personally, if I were making a broth at home, I would use a bunch of bones I already have in my freezer. And for this one in particular, I'd be using the whole carcass of a chicken, like a rotisserie chicken. But they do not sell those at dollar stores last I checked, so we're going to use some chicken stock. And given that our tare is going to season our broth, we do not want one with high sodium. Now as you can see, I've already opened the cans and put them in this pot. Well, for some extra poultry flavor that is not from the broth, I have here some canned turkey. Now it is currently the beginning of December when I'm filming right now. So they happen to have those right now at Dollar Tree. So in that goes. Now typically when I've made a ramen broth at home, I've used carrots, celery, onions, and ginger. Oh, as well as mushrooms. Now I have an equivalent for almost everything here. First of which being our garlic. We have a third of a cup right here. It sounds like a lot, but it's not fresh and it is minced. And next we have our carrots. We have here 14.5 ounces of sliced carrots. So in they go too, with the water drained. Whoop. Oh, come on, there we go. And next, the latter half of our jarred mushrooms. So that is half of 7 ounces, 3.5. There they go. And for that oceanic flavor, I got here some sardines with their oil drained. So here they go too. There we go. And now comes the part I have dreaded. Our last two substitutes. Our crispy onions. I wish I had the frozen celery and onion mixture, but this will do for our purposes. It's 2.8 ounces, so we're going to use the entire thing. And lastly, our ginger substitute, black peppercorns. Now, so far as I've been told, peppercorns are typically used in tare, not in broth. So, let's see what happens here. Oh, and that is 1/4 cup of black peppercorns. Overkill? We'll see. And now next, we're getting on to our ramen noodles. We got a pot of boiling water. I'm gonna turn that down a bit right now. I'm gonna add a couple of tablespoons of baking soda. There we go. Look at that foam up. Perfect. It's gonna dissolve just fine. We have here our thin pasta. Now I advise not using the entire package because if you're doing that, you're gonna want to feed an army. And also momentarily say goodbye to the paws. Alrighty then. Got a good chunk of these for those that I'm feeding tonight. There we go. So that's boiling, that's brewing. I will get back to you all when both of these are nearing completion. So I'll see you all here shortly. Hey folks, I'm a little cut. Out of character right now. Almost forgot the freaking shells of the shrimp. So, in they go. There we go. Extra flavor. Alrighty folks, we have come to the frickin' finish line. So while you were all gone, I drained the water from the pasta. I nuked our garlic a bit to turn it into our nice hard crunchies. I sliced our nori in half, and the broth has been brewing. It has now been about half an hour. So we have concentrated as much flavor out of these ingredients as possible, so far as I'm aware. Additionally, I took a couple spoonfuls of our tare, added it to each bowl, and 1 spoonful of our aroma oil. I added the noodles to each bowl, and now at the finish line, we're gonna add our broth and garnish them. So let's frickin' do this. It'll take a minute. And now let's garnish her up. Add some of that tempura. Gonna get here a spoonful of our corn. We're finally using it. A little spoonful of our garlic crunchies in the center. And lastly, some of our nori. And folks, my goodness, there we freaking have it. Sincerely, I am legitimately excited. Here we have our dollar store ramen. Alright folks, I have moved the other bowls out of the way real quick because I want to do a quick taste test. So, here we go. Alright, okay. I still have a dragon arm. Wait, hold on a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, first of all, that broth. Ooh, hold on. Nice. Hold on, one more. Okay, I gotta say, this is far away from the original chicken stock. Oh, that tastes nice. It's right too. I'm just enjoying myself. But, no, that, oh my god. Hey, y'all, one more, sorry. That is actually good. But not even like, oh, it's okay. Like, sincerely, I am actually very surprised by what we've made here tonight. Like, the sardines and shrimp shells definitely helped in this. Like, I'm trying to think of something that, like, came out a little differently, but no, like, this tastes, like, legit. This tastes good. Now, ideally, ramen broth, you want to use fresh ingredients, and honestly, they would be way cheaper elsewhere. But, if you're in a food desert, give this a shot. Give this a shot if you want to. But, otherwise, let's get back to Dragon. Alright, folks, and that concludes us making the ramen. I'm gonna, prep the other bowls for my friends, and otherwise, we freaking did it. I'm actually shocked, and I'm glad that you are all here for it, whoever's watching. So, yeah, That's it. Now, how about that, folks? We made our dollar store ramen. And this dish has made me really happy and really excited. I love hearing stories about people who use very little to make a lot. With the right techniques and the creativity, you can make so much. I say this a lot, but regardless of your budget, you should be able to enjoy food. Food you crave and food you want. And I think our dollar store ramen is a very good example of using very little to make a wonderful filling dish. So if you want, do what I did, but make it better. And throw your own crazy freaking spins on it. This has been fun, but in any case, folks, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time in my dungeon.